This week on the Baseline Podcast, Josh and I talk about baseball, specifically the races in the AL and the NL. We break down each division. We talk about the different players that are having great years, some that are not having so great years, and the rebuilders that have to start next year. And then we focus into the NFL and to college football. We talk about all the big news coming out of there, all that and so much more coming up on the Baseline Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Baseline Podcast. I'm Ben, that's Josh. It's just us this week, but we have a whole bunch of to talk about. Actually, sports we haven't talked about in a few months, Josh, together. So, Josh, how has your week been? How was week 0? How was that all? I mean, we talked with Chris and everything like that. How's it been?
Oh man, so week 0, I actually was working that day. So the only game I would have even been able to watch was the Vanderbilt Hawaii game. And I mean, Vandy put up 63 points on Hawaii, so I didn't really watch that. I ended up switching it to watch my Cleveland Guardians / Indians against Seattle Mariners instead. But I mean, hopefully none of you guys wasted your time listening to those first 10 minutes of our last episode about Nebraska and how they're going to be a great Big Ten team and how they're going to be top 3, as Chris stated, and why it's a no-brainer to bet on them. Like it was.
Dude, I'm telling you, Chris Drew, if you're listening, dude, you said you would regret it if this happened, and now you should regret it. It's now on the internet that you stated that Nebraska will be a top 3 team. I'm sorry. We'll get to the college football here in a little bit. But I'm just saying, I just think it's really funny. But no, we do appreciate Chris and all of our guests that come on.
Chris was awesome.
And it's nice, Josh, to have me and you because it's kind of where it started. But it's kind of weird sometimes when it's just us two, like we're missing somebody. It feels weird sometimes.
Yeah, but that's also kind of what keeps us from talking about these other sports too. You know what I mean? We've had so many college football related guests that it's just like, while we have them on, we're going to take advantage, right? We want to learn about Michigan football from James Yoder and David Cohn. We want to learn about Auburn football from Blaine Crane. And we want to, hear insight on Ohio State from guys like Chris Drew. So now that it's kind of just us, we can kind of play a little bit of catch up here because it's September 1st, Ben. Now that we're recording, we got one more month of baseball season, and there is a lot of important things to talk about in that sport.
It's going to be crazy. Make sure you stay tuned on our Instagram, baseline.podcast. I'm sure I'll link it below. But yeah, we're going to be adding some stuff here. Actually, no, you're listening to this like a couple days after I re-record this. So never mind. Forget what I just said. Anyways, as Josh said, baseball season it is. And Josh, can I just say something? The Reds suck. The
Reds still suck.
I hadn't said that in a while, and it feels good to get it out again. And how we're paying Joey Votto to $30 million to sit on the in the announcer's role. So it's a great season for the Reds.
You know who else sucks right now, Ben, is the Yankees.
Dude, they're bad right now.
They finished August with a 10-18 record, and I believe only the Tigers had a worse month than the Yankees.
Wait, you're telling me the Reds? Wait, the Reds did better?
That means that the Reds did better than the first place in the American League Yankees in the month of August.
It's over. Count it now. Reds are in the World Series.
Yes, but I want to touch on first, like we're talking about how bad the Reds suck, and I feel like this is going to anger you a little, Ben, but bear with me. I want to brag about my Cleveland Indians here for at least the beginning of this baseball segment right here, if you would allow me to do so.
Sure.
And it's not like they're going to go and win a World Series or anything, but it's just they've been absolutely insane, especially in the bullpen. So I don't know if this is still true, but at least a week ago, the Indians had the best record in baseball since the All-Star break. It was 19-12. Right now, they're 22-16, so still very strong. And a big reason for that, Ben, has been the bullpen, which has not allowed an earned run in its last 31 third innings pitched. They got 44 strikeouts in that span. They've only allowed 11 hits and 12 walks. In the last 46 games, so like the second half of this season, they've had a 1.85 ERA. And guys like Nick Sandlin, Emmanuel Clase, James Karinchak, and Trevor Stephan have been a big reason for that. Karinchak has 38 strikeouts, 7 hits allowed, no earned runs in his last 21 innings. That's like a strikeout and a half every inning. Emmanuel Clase has allowed just 1 earned run in his last 21 appearances. Trevor Stephan, 2 earned runs in his last 20 and a third innings, and he's got 33 strikeouts in that span. And Sandlin hasn't allowed an earned run since all the way back in July 5th. So, I mean, you need a very strong bullpen once it comes to postseason baseball. And I know I already said that I don't think Cleveland's going to do much as far as like run goes into the playoffs because of other issues. But the bullpen, it's not going to be because of the bullpen, I don't think. Like this is, I mean, that's 4 guys right there, but everybody's been contributing. They've been hot.
Yeah, and I mean, I've always said, like, as much as I dislike the Guardians, right? But in general, I'm an Ohio guy, and as Josh knows, if the the Guardians aren't in the playoffs, usually most Guardian fans root for the Reds. If the Reds, there's usually like, hey, you want to root for the Ohio team, whatever. And so I love where the Guardians are at, and it's also impressive what the bullpen's doing, because like if you look at that list, there's a few guys and then the rest are kind of like, oh wow, that's kind of interesting. But honestly, as I've been keeping track of what they're doing. You have so many young guys. We made fun of Stephen Kwan, right, when he kind of fell off, right, after he had that
After he had that streak of not swinging and
crazy,
missing, the hit
yeah.
streak,
And we
yeah.
we kind of made fun of him, like, oh, here goes just another rookie that hits a tear and then it fades off. But honestly, like, he's really, to me, he's my vote for rookie of the year. And it's very hard. Like, I know Rodriguez is doing some crazy things, but like, this dude is doing everything from stealing bases, on base percentage, average, hits, doubles, like anything you need, he goes and gets. And he just reminds me a lot of like a kind of a Jonathan India from last year, a guy that's not going to, shoot for power, but he's just a guy that's going to get on base. He's going to do some damage when you need him to, but he's just going to be a consistent guy. And I think it'll be cool to see two Ohio teams get rookie of the years back-to-back years. But I also think for the Guardians, and I think it's like weird with the Reds and the Guardians, right? I just mentioned the Reds and how bad they are. It feels like it's like every other year with the Guardians and Reds. It's like one year the one team decides to just not be that good the year, and it's just like this rotating basis. I would love to see like a Guardians Reds World Series. Like, that would just be an awesome. Ohio would be thumping if that would happen. I'm just
It
saying,
would be.
Josh.
It'd be a heck of a time to live in this state. But I've kind of been adamant on Julio Rodriguez as rookie of the year at the All-Star break when we had Johnny
Yeah, that's
gone
right.
on
Yeah.
from fifth and goal. J-Rod led literally all the rookies, American League rookie stats except batting average. Quan hadn't beat there, but now Quan's batting 295, has an on-base percentage of 370, which is, I believe, first for AL rookies in both those categories. And he's approaching J-Rod in like all those other categories that looked like he was going to have a huge lead on, just because he's kind of slowed down since that All-Star break. Like, still playing very good baseball. It just hasn't maintained the pace they started off with. So that's something to keep an eye on. But Jose Ramirez too, Ben, he has a 284 batting average
Dude,
right now,
he's
26
unreal.
home runs, and I believe it is
It's like
106
106.
RBIs.
Yeah.
That's second in baseball. He has a 901 OPS, which ranks ninth. Now, I'm going to tell you why I don't believe that Cleveland's going to make a run of the World Series right now. Is while they are 10th in batting average, they have a lot of guys hitting the high 280s, 290s, low 300s, but they haven't been able to convert that to any offensive production because they're only 20th in runs scored. So like, they're getting all these hits, but they haven't been able to string enough together to drive anybody in. So that's also telling me that I should have checked this, but they probably aren't doing too well with runners in scoring position either. If they're getting these hits and not bringing anybody home. So that is something that is going to have to change. Just more consistent offense in general, getting those guys that are getting hits to score.
Yeah, and I think Josh, we grew up around the game of baseball. We kind of know, living in Ohio, rooting for the teams we root for. I think whenever we've seen the Guardians or the Reds be successful, they know how, they pitch well, right? But they also know how
Always.
to. They always, if you look at the Reds team back in like from the 2010 to 2014 time frame, right, when Votto was in his prime, when you had Jay Bruce and all these guys, is that they had some good quality pitching, not great pitching, but quality pitching, but they knew how to drive in runs. And I've said it 1,000 times in baseball, like, yeah, you need to have some good pitching. You don't need great pitching. You just need good, solid pitching in the bullpen and in the starters. But if you can have those 3 to 4 guys that can just do so well hitting the ball, I think that can make a difference. And I feel like the Guardians are a few pieces away from being a very legitimate threat in the American League. I feel like they need a couple more guys to go around Ramirez and Quan to have like this kind of this glue, right? The Reds had it a few years ago with Castellanos, with Votto, with a lot of these guys, and we've seen the Guardians have it in the past. The issue is the Guardians and the Reds don't like spending money. I mean, Guardians have shown it here recently, but I just think the Guardians are at least 2 pieces away on the offensive side of the ball to really get where they need to be.
That was another big reason why I wanted to go and make a trade for Joey Votto, because it's like, yeah, we're not going to be able to afford the $800 million it's going to take to sign him to an extension once that time comes around. But He was going to be able to stay on his rookie deal until at least 2026, I believe it was. He also fits the timeline of the team. I think it's the youngest in baseball. They've had something like 13 or 14 guys make their MLB debut this season. So that tells me we got prospects out the butt, Ben. And I mean, we always are really good developing guys. We could have sent so many guys out there to Washington to bring Juan Soto
So
into a Cleveland uniform, a guy that can drive in some of these runs and stick around with the team for like another 3 seasons. And maybe that's the one piece we could have used.
the only reason I'm laughing is because you said Joey Votto, and I'm just dying right now. I am 100% serious. You said Joey
Juan
Votto.
Soto,
You
Joey
said,
Votto.
you
Juan
said,
Soto,
you
Joey
said,
Votto.
you said,
I'm
and I
watching you
quote,
laugh. I'm like, I
and
have
I
no
quote,
idea why he's laughing.
and I quote, we were going to send a bunch of young guys to go get Joey Votto and his $800 million extension. Oh, and plus he's still in his prime. And I'm like, Joey
Oh
Votto's
man.
injured in the
Yeah. Two guys on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. Juan Soto, Juan Soto, Juan Soto. That is who Cleveland should have made the trade for. They shouldn't have allowed the Padres to go and
Oh
make
my
that move.
goodness.
But yeah, and it was actually at that point that I thought, all right, I guess Cleveland really isn't serious about winning this season because Minnesota had first place at the time. They made 3, I thought, key trades that were going to just push them forward, right, and separate the gap between first and second place. But now Cleveland's got 1 game lead in that division. And I mean, if this bullpen continues to stay the way it is, if they can figure out a way to maybe get some of these guys home, maybe they can at least win a series. And I mean, at the beginning of the season, Ben, I told you Cleveland was going to be fighting with probably Kansas City to get third in the division. So, I mean, that we're sitting pretty good right now. We are much further along the timeline than what I thought Cleveland was going to be.
Hey, you know, one thing the Reds did do right is that they now have the third best minor league system in baseball. I don't know if you guys remember, we have actually never talked about it because we had all these college football guys on, but the Reds made some huge deals at the deadline. One to the Twins for Malley, which the guy they got, which was Steven something. I forget what it was. Anyways, they got a guy, he was like the 7th rated prospect now in the Reds team. They just brought him up. They got a few guys they got Marte from the Mariners for Castillo and a few other guys. The Reds, at least what they're doing is try to build for the future. Knowing the Reds, though, next year they'll sell all those guys for some washed up veteran that they think will fit the organization and, you know, just ruin us then. So, you know, we just, you know, us Reds fans just in hope. But Josh, with that being said, what are some of the other things we need to talk about in baseball since we have missed a while since we've talked about baseball?
Yeah, I mean, we already mentioned how the Yankees have been struggling. They had the best record in baseball at the All-Star break, and now it's actually the Dodgers that are the first team to
Of
90
course.
wins.
Of course.
And they actually got 11 more wins than the Yankees do right now. They're
That's
11 games
crazy.
ahead of them. That's how hot they've been lately. And a big reason for that has been guys like Mookie Betts and Justin Turner and some
Yeah.
of those other bats that were just slowing down. Like right now, Ben, they lead the league in RBIs, runs scored, batting average, and they're up there in home runs too. I think they're 5th, but that's all the while Cody Bellinger's hit 204, Max Muncy's hit 186, Chris Taylor's hit 224, and I mentioned Turner. He was hitting like the 230s, 240s earlier. He's gotten that up to 268.
Wow.
That's still below what he's used to, though. But I mean, it just is like, wow, what could the Dodgers be if they were playing to their full potential at this point? Like they already
That's
got the best
scary.
record right now with these guys that are, I believe, all former All-Stars struggling, playing below what they're used to. Like if they could just get those guys to go up with Trey Turner, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Will Smith, the All-Star catcher that they got, like this could be an incredible team, an incredibly dangerous team in the playoffs. That's just the offense too. Like let's talk about the pitching staff, which has lost Walker Buehler for the season due to Tommy John
Yeah.
surgery. Tony Gonsolin has a forearm strain.
He's
He might be out
yeah.
for the whole month of September, but it's okay, Ben, because they still have Tyler Anderson, Clayton Kershaw, and Julio Urias, who all have 2.7 ERAs or lower. And by the way, Dustin May is back, one of the most unhittable two-seam fastballs in all sports. So it's like, who's taking down the Dodgers in the National League?
It's called this is what happens when you have money.
But the Yankees have money, Ben.
Okay, but the Yankees are the Yankees. Let's be honest. The Yankees get to a point, and then it's just like they cap right there. I mean, Aaron Judge is having an amazing season. Like, he should be the MVP, hands down, I believe. But that depends on what the Yankees do. I will say, speaking of like the AL, right? Like I was hoping Speaking of the NL, I guess I thought it'd been really funny. Someone threw this trade out there that if somehow the Dodgers got Shohei Ohtani, I'm like, if that happened, I would quit watching
They
baseball.
did flirt with that. I think that was only rumors. I don't know if there's actually anything true about that, but the possibility of
Can you
Shohei being
imagine that?
traded.
But the thing is, Shohei traded to the Dodgers, and you have Kershaw, you have Ohtani. Oh, by the way, Ohtani then pitches a 270 ERA, and then he turns around and hits a home run. Like, it's like, if the Dodgers do that, I quit watching baseball. I'm done.
That's the
I
other
can't.
thing about trading for Ohtani is like, yes, he is one man, but he is also at the same time the team's best pitcher. And I mean, Mike Trout's there, but one of the best hitters, and probably would be the best hitter on most teams in the league.
It's hard for me to go. That's why it's so hard for me to like say that I don't want to put him as the MVP. Like, the dude's literally doing two jobs and getting paid to do one. Like, literally, how can you not choose him to be MVP? Like, every year, like, and so it's fascinating. I think also with some of these races that we have, and I know we'll talk about it here in a second. I think if we take a step back, really talking about, trades and free agency and stuff, I think it's really interesting to see how the Braves have signed another one of their young guys to another long extension for basically no money.
Michael Harris, I think it was 8 years, 70 million or something.
And then
like
you
that.
see the Mariners signed, was it Julio Rodriguez to like
Julio
a
Rodriguez?
stupid,
I
weird,
think
it was a weird deal.
It was like 14 years
for 200 million or something like that.
Something million. Yeah, it was going to average out to like 20 mil. Yeah, kind of like what Austin Riley's was with the Braves, but it's just like, wow.
But I think the Braves are smart, right? They're like, look, even if these guys aren't completely proven, we know the talent's there. Let's lock them up so they can't go out in free agency. They can't go to arbitration. And the Braves are
paying
saving
them early.
money.
Like,
they're saving
it's a win-win.
money.
It's a win-win because these guys all want to be paid, right? Instead of getting dragged out on their rookie contract for an extra 3-4 years, right? Like, that's the whole reason that teams hesitate to call guys up to begin with, is just so they can have more control over their contract. But the Braves are over here like, we got a guy. He's only been up here for a season, but I mean, they already have, I think they have now Matt Olson, Michael Harris, who we just said, Albies is there, Austin Riley, Ronald Acuna, all under contract through like 2028.
Yeah.
Like, the next guy in line that they got to get locked up is Dansby Swanson. But I mean, this is going to be a team they got to win another ring, Ben, having that young core together that long.
I mean, just for David Cone. I mean, we just got to do it for David Cone, right? Like, we need them to win. That's just what they need to happen. But no, I think it is fascinating, Josh. And I think what these races here all in Major League Baseball are proving, right, is that there are some teams that can do it without spending a bunch of money, right? Like, look at the Braves, right? They're not spending a ton of money. They're spending money, but not like the Dodgers. But then it also shows that if you spend enough money, you will get wins. Like, if you spend more than $230 million a year, you're going to
an all-star at every position. It's just
you're going to be fine, right? So it's not like the NBA where like it's different, because in the MLB, it's like you have so many more positions and so many more key values. Whereas in the NBA, it's like, okay, look at the Nets. I mean, they just suck, but we won't get into that. But yeah, it's very interesting. So Josh, what are your thoughts on these races? Do we think we have any runaways yet, or do you feel like it's going to be just kind of down to the wire with some of these?
I mean, we talked about the Yankees cooling down, but I think they still got
a big
about
lead,
an 11 or 12 game lead in that division. Let me think. Dodgers.
Well, the
Dodgers got a pretty far lead. I think right now they're 16 games ahead of the second place Padres. Yeah. But let me point to the NL East right now, because the Mets are 83-48, the Braves are 80-51, and the Phillies are 73-58. That's 10 games separating the top three teams, and we got a month left to go here.
Yeah. You know what's the crazy part is, who has the greatest walkout music of all time? Wrestler, professional athlete, is Edwin Diaz of the Mets. Did you see Timmy Trumpet come out? And
I did.
That was the most.
I couldn't imagine playing that live.
Oh my! Can you imagine coming out of the bullpen and just the whole crowd? It's like literally he was a WWE wrestler coming out for a match. I mean, literally, I was like chills watching that video. Like, I can't imagine, because I was a former bullpen pitcher, and like, no one ever played music. I just was told by the coach to go in there and pitch, right? But to be like, you just take your jog, you walk up in there, and you just see the crowd just chanting your name, singing the song. I think
it's the same
amazing
vibe as Mariano Rivera when he was with the Yankees and they'd play Enter Sandman.
Yeah.
And also, if you're going to have a hype song come out when you're going to pitch, you'd better be absolutely locked in, like slam the door on this team. I wonder if this is going to become like
a
what the
thing.
turnover
Yeah.
chain did in college football. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where all these teams just started coming up with turnover this and turnover that, and it's just going to be overused, and every team's going to do this for their closer, and then he's going to get lit up for maybe 3 runs in the 9th inning. It's just going to lose its meaning. Like right now,
Yeah.
Edwin Diaz, one of the best closers in baseball. I think this is really the only man. Maybe you could argue Emmanuel Clase for Cleveland too could, earn a hype song.
You know,
But
I would like the Reds to actually have a closer for 1 year. We have not had a legit closer in 4 years. I'm not kidding you, Josh. The leading closer for the Reds for the last 3.5 years has been like 10 saves, 13 saves. It's ridiculous. Like they have so many dudes. I'm like, we have Edwin Diaz's younger brother. I don't know if you know that plays for the Reds. He got hurt middle of the year in June and July, and so he didn't play. But he has a 1.74 ERA. Like he's actually legit, like really good. I'm like, maybe we have a closer, but it's the Reds, and they'll somehow mess it up. But
yeah.
anyways,
Speaking of saves too, Ben, I don't know if you noticed Josh Hader, who's tied for first in the league in saves, just finally got his first save with the Padres yesterday. He's
it's like a
pitched 8
month.
games with them, but his ERA is over 19 with the team right now. Yeah,
and they traded their best, like their closer for Hader.
They did. They traded a lot to get that guy. And I mean, as the season as a whole goes, I think his ERA is above 6 too. So it's not even like he was balling out with the Brewers, at least this season. We know Josh Hader's an all-star, been an all-star, proven vet, but he's just been struggling a little more so this season and really hasn't settled into San Diego.
Speaking of pitching, did you see the first ever 100-mile-an-hour off-speed pitch was thrown? It was a splitter. I can't remember his name.
Wow.
But it just happened a couple days ago or yesterday as we're recording this. But it was a splitter, and he threw it 100 miles an hour. Can you imagine trying to hit a splitter at 100 miles per hour?
I mean, it's like Emmanuel Case's cutter or Dustin May's 2-seam fastball. There's just some of these pitches that you wouldn't consider off speed, right? Like you initially think of curveball, changeup, slider, but some of these pitches, I mean, these are fastballs that got movement on them. The splitter's fast, the cutter's fast, the 2-seamer's fast, and now we're seeing, I don't want to call it video game numbers, but it's like I don't know what else to call it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's crazy. Anyways, Josh, what else we got on the baseball docket?
Yeah, well, let's slide over to the American League wild card race, which is Tampa Bay with 72 wins in the lead right now, and the Seattle actually is second and has a chance then to break that postseason less streak. I think it's the longest streak in professional sports of not making the playoffs. It was like since 2001 or 2002, since the last time they made it, back when they had that stacked Mariners team with Ichiro and A-Rod and guys like that on it. This team Seattle's had some guys come through in the past, like Felix Hernandez, that are fun to watch, but they've never been able to put it all together until now. And now they got some younger guys. They kind of stole some guys from the Reds, getting
3 guys
like Suarez. Yeah, a lot of
guys.
They made a lot of trades with the Reds to get good. And now J-Rod, a Rookie of the Year candidate. So this is a team that might finally be able to break that. And then you kind of are followed by the Blue Jays close behind. I think they're a couple games back. A really popular World Series prediction at the start of the season. And then the Orioles are 4th, and they're still hovering above 500.
Excuse me. What did you
Orioles?
say?
The Orioles?
The Oriole. You mean like the Orioles. The birds. The birds that never make
birds. It. Yes.
Oh, wow.
They are 4th in the wild card race right now. I think in total, they're 4 or 5 games back with a month left of the season. They could still make it. And this is even after trading Trey Mancini and some of these other picks. Like they were overachieving, but apparently it just wasn't good enough in that division with the way the Yankees. And I mean, it's a tough division. Blue Jays were playing pretty good at that time, Tampa Bay. So they just kind of threw in the towel, but I mean, they're still going here.
I mean, it's like, they have Adley Rutschman, who's one of the best young catchers, if not the best young catcher in the game. And I love I don't know. It's just always funny when people talk about the Orioles. Like I can never take the Orioles seriously. I'm sorry. Like even if they're in the race, I'm like, yeah, I just can't. Like it's so hard.
It feels odd to say. Like kind of Seattle, the same situation. It's like they actually could break the streak.
But at least I know players on their team, Josh. At least I know some of the guys.
We can name some guys in the Mariners, but outside of Adley and now that they traded Trey, I don't know if I could name another Oriole.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's not really good for the brand.
But hey, one other thing I think that's interesting to watch in this last month of baseball is Albert Pujols.
Yes.
Who had a hot month of August. I think there was a 10-game stretch there where he had the best slugging percentage during any 10-game stretch of his entire career at age 42.
It's unreal.
He's at 694 now as it stands, and he's got to
Yeah.
hit 6 more home runs in the month of September. I really do think if he doesn't quite reach it, if he's at 699 or if he's in an Alex Rodriguez situation where he's like 696, he's going to come back and get that
Oh,
700th one. Alex couldn't come back and try to get that 700 because he was so bad and nobody wanted to sign him. But Pujols, I think, is still a very likable guy. And if he comes up short, he's going to get signed. But there's a chance he could do it this season, Ben, and then
yeah.
retire with as one of the, I think, 4 or 5 guys that have hit 700 dingers.
You know, this is the way I've always loved our Pujols, right? Even though he played for the Cardinals, and as a Reds fan, it was, I mean, he owns the Reds. Like, he literally probably has keys to the Great American Ballpark. I mean, the
Somebody
man,
probably changed their Wikipedia page to owner
oh my
Albert Pujols at
goodness,
one
right?
point in time, right?
You know, and the thing is, though, is I've always respected Albert, right? As he's a man of faith. He's a guy who's just going to be honestly, he's so like downright just a good dude. Like, if you just listen to him and like all the things he's done with Make-A-Wish, and he's always reached out to people, and the fact that he's doing this at 42 and he's doing it with the team he started with, right? Like, Wainwright's going to go out, I think, this year. Molina's retiring. It's like, it's the perfect way to see those trio. And as a Reds fan, and as bad the Reds win, he actually just hit it's like the 450th home run off a different pitcher or whatever, and it set the record, and it was against the Reds. And you know, you even saw Reds fans just like, I mean, this whole time, like, he's never wanted it to be about him, right? And growing up as a guy that loved baseball, Albert Pujols is my brother's favorite player, and he's was one of mine growing up as playing first base, right? Like, I always looked at Albert Pujols before the Joey Vottos, before anything like that, and I just I learned what baseball truly means, and I learned how baseball can bring people together. And Albert was a guy that, whether you liked the team you played against, he played for, or you didn't, you respected Albert. And the machine, as they called him, was definitely not a machine, right? Like, he was honestly just a down the right good guy. And I always get emotional when I talk about Albert, because it's just like he reminded me of why we play the game, right? Or why we play sports. And it's so cool. And I hope he gets 700 this year. I hope he doesn't have to come out just to play for a few games. If anything, I see him.
It doesn't. I'm going to be looking at the 2020 shortened season that Rob Manfred basically screwed and made the guys want to play 60 games and be like, man, Rob Manfred screwed something up in baseball again.
But even not that. It's even like, I would say, I think Albert would come back for like a 2-month stint. He would be like, hey, I'll play 2 months for the Cardinals. Let me get my 700. But I truly believe what they're going to do is they're just going to play him at DH the whole month of September and just say, hey, go out on the top.
That's the big key, too, is now that he doesn't have to play full games or worry about playing defense. Like, right now, I think his stats are here. He's batting over 260,
yeah,
which
he's 270.
is serviceable.
He's like 275 now, I think.
Yes. Yeah, and I think he's got 15 home runs or something like that. So, I mean, he's still playing very serviceably. I mean, it's not what we're used to seeing from Albert, but it's also not terrible. Like, you can live with that. I would love to add, another 260 bat in the Cleveland lineup.
Would you say that, do you feel like Albert's really changed our generation's view of, like, when we were growing up, of baseball? Like, at least that's what I feel like. He really had a different, I don't know, like, watching him was just a different feel than like watching some of these flashy guys. Like, Albert was never flashy. Like, that's the thing, right?
Yeah, he kind of just came in. I mean, I think that part of the reason why he was called a machine is just because of how consistent he was.
Yeah.
I want to say his first 10, 11, 12 seasons, he hit at least 300 with 30 home runs and 100 RBIs. And I'm not sure how many guys have been able to do that. But I think it was finally his last season with the Cardinals when they won the World Series. He batted 299 or something like that, and he just came short of doing it for another season in a row.
Where do you put him in your top 10 of all time? Is he in the top 10 of you for all time?
Oh, man, that's so hard to say, man, because of the way that people judge baseball players. Some people say, I mean, baseball is that one sport I feel like that has so many people that you could argue to be the GOAT. Like, in basketball, the overwhelming majority is going to say Michael Jordan. In football, the overwhelming majority is going to say Tom Brady. But you talk to baseball fans, and some might say it's Babe Ruth. Some might say it's Jackie Robinson. Some might say it's Willie Mays. Like, my dad, I think, is kind of in that camp. And then you have guys up there like Albert Pujols, or guys like, even you could go as far back to Ty Cobb or Pete Rose, 4,000 hits. Like, these are all guys that I think you can make the case for. And I don't know if we'll ever I wonder what the overwhelming majority of GOAT is. Like, Babe Ruth has like that legendary status and the name. So I wonder if more people would go with him maybe. But I mean, I would say Albert Pujols is definitely a top 10 first
Yeah,
baseman.
for sure.
But I think as far as top 10 player goes, there's a lot of guys that you could throw in there. And I mean,
I think I've always said he's top 15 for me. Like I just like what he
I
did.
would say in mine,
Yeah.
he's got to be top 20. I mean, we're
Yeah.
talking a guy that's going to have 3,000 hits, I believe, and potentially 700 home runs. I'm sure he ranks up there in RBIs too. And longevity has
Walks,
to
on base
count for
percentage,
something. Yes. Yes. So,
average. I mean,
yeah. So
I
I'm going to
love
go ahead and say top 20 for sure.
yeah, I
But
look
I don't know. I'd have to write down my top 10 and see that
yeah.
visually.
I look at Joey Votto and I'm like, I love Joey Votto, but then I'm like, man, I would take Albert Pujols over Joey Votto 3 times over, right? But no, I say that little just that little excerpt right there in the show today because I want people to realize that like people that come out and say that sports is stupid, right? Or I sometimes have students at school that say that, like people don't realize what sports can do for people. Like I know you and I growing up around sports, like it changed our lives in many ways, and many people impacted us through sports. And I think Albert has impacted hundreds, if not thousands, of kids all over the world by just his fun-loving attitude and his smile and just the way he played baseball. So we thank you, Albert. This is our tip of the cap to you, Albert. We appreciate you. But yeah, that's enough with baseball. I think, Josh, let's move to college football. Week 0. We're going to talk about the Nebraska
I mean,
catastrophe.
I don't know how much of that you watched. I did not get to watch any of it, but
I
what
watched
I was able
highlights.
okay, what I was
Go
able
ahead.
to absorb first off was how I guess disturbing it was that Nebraska's defense allowed over 500 total yards against Northwestern, especially after hearing Zach and Chris over at Minister Sports bring up the fact that Northwestern was the only Power 5 team
Yeah, I know.
I think outside the top 100 in total offense and defense. Like this team didn't have anything uh, notable or worth noting at all last year. And Nebraska made all these changes in the offseason. They go and get Casey Thompson. They go and get Mark Whipple. They get all these guys in the transfer portal that played meaningful snaps. And this was going to be different, right? This was going to be the year that Scott Frost finally was going to be able to get a winning record, get Nebraska to a bowl game. And it started off that way. I think Nebraska had 2 different 11-point leads at certain times, but I mean, coupled with the fact that your defense can't get it done, and then they had that interesting onside kick call, which I mean, you could say was
That
a
was
good
just
call or a
dumb.
bad
No,
call.
it's just
It's
dumb.
just
Sorry.
I don't think most would have done it, but if it had worked, we would have been calling Scott Frost a genius. But I think, I mean, and then Scott Frost at the end of the game decided to blame. I believe it was I want to say he blamed the offense, right?
Yeah, I mean,
You remember? I think he blamed the offense, and it's like, dude, your defense just allowed 500 yards in Northwestern. Why isn't that the issue right now? Your offense scored 28 points, which should win you games more often than not in the Big Ten.
yeah, I don't it is fascinating. But I want to pause right here, Josh, in the middle of the show. The only reason I'm saying that is because I got a message for all of you listening that literally just popped on my phone that said the Cavaliers just got Donovan Mitchell.
Really?
So yeah. So
Now we
anyways,
have to talk about that.
yeah. So Scott Frost.
Finish this thought.
Yeah. Hold on, Donovan. Sorry, this is really funny. This is going to go on the episode here.
I'm getting texts from my friends now that the Cavs got Donovan.
But the question is what they gave up, and that's what scares me. What
Yes,
did they
we
give
do
up
need
for
to know
him?
that because I don't think Donovan was going to fit the timeline.
I feel
And,
like it
I
could
mean, he
have
was going to
been.
command a lot.
It could
I'm
have
going to go
been.
ahead and say there's 3 draft picks involved and Colin Sexton.
That's what I was saying.
At
Colin
least.
Sexton.
That's at the
Sexton's
very
probably
least.
going, yeah.
Because I think we also heard the Jazz insist that they weren't going to accept anything less than 7 first-rounders for Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah.
That could have just been setting the price high so that teams would say, well, what about 6? Then be like, okay,
so here we go.
actually-
Here we go. Wojnarowski just came out and said Cleveland will send 3 unprotected. Wow, that's a lot. First-round picks, 2 pick swaps as part of the deal to Utah. For Utah.
3 unprotected firsts.
First and 2 pick swaps as part. I don't know what 2 pick swaps mean. It could mean first rounds or it could mean second rounds.
Yeah.
So honestly,
did Colin Sexton get included?
It did not say, but all I know is the Cavs just put the dice in the middle of the table and said, we're going for it this year. And if I'm serious, I know we're talking about football and baseball, but if the Cavs make this work, this is like a big old double bird to LeBron and saying like, hey, we can win without you.
That would be awesome if they did. I know
Oh,
I've been vocal about how I don't really care too much about the NBA, but it's
but
kind of cool
now,
seeing the Cavs
oh,
succeed and win in ways that aren't supposed to work in the NBA. Now they got, let's rattle this off, and we got a roster that features, I mean, Evan Mobley and Darius Garland are going to be the front runners. Then you got Isaac Okoro there. You got Jarrett Allen. You got Lauri Markkanen. You have Colin Sexton. You have Donovan Mitchell on the team now, and you also have there's a
Levert,
couple.
you got Karis Levert as
Karis
well.
Levert's going to be there fully healthy. Did Ricky Rubio come back too?
Yep,
Is that
Ricky
another one?
Rubio. Yep,
That's another one. I feel like there's
they're
one other big man.
they
Kevin
also
Love is still there,
and they also got the Mobley brother,
and the
his
other
older
Mobley,
brother.
yes,
Yeah,
from the draft, yes. So I mean, this team was borderline. They just missed
and they
out
got their
on
first and they got
making
the
the
first
wild
round pick
card.
too. They got the guy from Kansas, the player of the year in the Big 12 as well in the draft.
Oh, I forgot his name already.
Ochaba or Akchabi or Achabo, something like that. No, sorry.
Yeah, well,
But anyways, that
that's
is
crazy.
breaking news that happened literally as we're recording this.
And you're going to
Technically,
hear this 2 days after it happened, but
actually
at
longer
the
than that.
time of
It's gonna be like
recording,
4
we're
days.
breaking it.
Yeah, we are breaking it at the time of
We're
recording.
gonna go ahead and break it on the baseline Instagram right now. I'm gonna go ahead and do
Yes,
that.
do it while you're on, so you can we can prove it. Hold on, I'm gonna see what Woj says here. If there's any new news here, nothing new. So, anyways,
Yeah.
we've never had that happen, man. We've never like
Have
been
we ever
doing.
done
I
a
don't think
breaking
we've
news
ever
story?
broke something while we're recording, which is
Yeah.
it's
Too
just
bad it ain't a live show. It doesn't really count,
it
man.
doesn't really count
That's
though.
breaking
No,
news.
doesn't really count. But no, while Josh is doing that, I would touch on the Nebraska thing because I think it is funny because one that Chris Drew came on here and was just totally putting up
I mean,
Nebraska
he
as
totally convinced me that Nebraska was going to win. I was going with Northwestern. Some of my other friends were. And then he made so many good points that I was just like, wow, I am an idiot, Chris. Thank you for making me see the light that Nebraska
and
is
then you
actually going to do
realize he was a false he was a, as they would say false prophet, but a pro
I don't want to hammer Chris too hard, but I mean, that is the
oh
reason why
Chris.
I did not pick them to win, or the reason that I picked them to win the game in my pick'em league.
Yes. So anyways, so yeah, Nebraska losing was I think a really I don't know. It kind of hurts the Big Ten in a sense because I feel like This is the thing though. Northwestern just does this every year. They get told they're
Every
not going to be good.
3 to 4 years, it seems like
They're
they
just
have a
good.
team that is
No, but
dogs.
listen,
Pat Fitzgerald just
they're
gets a
never
class.
they're never talented. I mean, not that they're not talented. They're never like highly talented guys. They just are coached well. Pat Fitzgerald is one of the best coaches in college football. Like he's going to be a Northwestern guy. You'll never get him away from there. He'll just be that guy, right? And I think if Northwestern, I mean, it sucks whenever it's the Big Ten championship game because usually they go against Ohio State.
The
And Ohio
West
State
is never winning that.
Ohio State beats them by 30,
Yeah.
but no, in general though, I think it's going to be a great. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a great year, but yeah, my initial thoughts in that game was that poor Ireland to watch that football game, which was
I
just
mean,
like
it looked like the game. It kind
it
of went
just
back and
was.
forth, so it was probably exciting to
Yeah, but it's
watch
like,
if you never get to watch football.
but there were so many missed tackles, man. Like there was so many.
That is true. I think Nebraska had
There were
24
so
or
many
something
missed
very
tackles,
high. Yes.
and like it's football. Like we're not like rugby players could have tackled those guys, right? Like, so it's just for me, it's awesome for Northwestern, but I think I truly, and this is I want to, if the I'm going to do the Chris Drew. I'm
Death
going to
beam
throw
at
it.
you.
Yeah, I'm going to throw it back at you. Question is, Josh, do you believe Frost is fired before November 1st?
Oh man. I think it's actually October 1st that his buyout goes
Yes,
from
I'm just
15
wondering if
million
they let
to
him go.
7
Yeah,
million.
but I'm just saying if he will last longer. But do you think before November 1st he gets fired?
I'm going to go ahead and say yes, because this was a game on their schedule
They
that
should have won.
we were counting on them winning, and they did not get it done.
And
So
then they
that
go
is
to
very
Oklahoma,
concerning
I
to
believe.
me. I mean, time will tell if Northwestern's actually a good team, and this will be a respectable loss by the end of the season. But as of right now, it is not looking like it. So I'm actually trying to pull up Nebraska's schedule here as we speak so we can see what they have
Because I know
coming
they play
up.
Oklahoma coming up. I know that.
They do have that coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So North Dakota is this Saturday, not to be confused with North Dakota State. So perhaps that is an out of conference win for them. They also have Georgia Southern the next week. You hope that is a win. And then you have Oklahoma coming to your home turf. So then they have home games with Indiana and a road game with Rutgers. So on paper, Ben, Rutgers should be a win. Now, Indiana should be a win. Georgia Southern should be a win. North Dakota State should have been a win, and Northwestern was supposed to be a win. So they were supposed to be 5-2 these first 7 games,
Yeah.
theoretically. And now that they haven't lost, or they lost to Northwestern, it's like, well, who else are they going to lose to on this schedule now?
Yeah.
Because that's
good.
the first 7 games. Like for October, it's like, I mean, it was looking like he was going to be okay, and they weren't going to have to buy him out. But I mean,
Yeah.
if
It was
he's
already
3-4 those first 7 games, I'm going to say he's gone.
Yeah, I agree as well with you. I think it's a hot seat. It's gotten hotter as the year has already started, which is crazy. And speaking of the hot seat, Josh, we are completely wrong with our breaking news because in this trade, by the way, we're going back to basketball. If anybody hasn't paid attention, we're kind of breaking this. The Cavaliers have traded Lauri Markkanen, their first round pick from this year, a Chabi, and Colin Sexton plus the picks. So that's all they gave up.
That sounds more like a haul for Donovan Mitchell than a
But
few first rounders.
But I will say this about this trade. Lauri Markkanen, he started to come on, which I'm really bummed because I love the way. I mean, he's 7'2", he's long, he's lanky. But I will say this: the Jabi, we didn't know who he was, right? We knew what he did in college. We didn't know he didn't really prove himself. Sexton was already out last year. They won without Sexton. So my thing is, they've really only given up one true starter in that team because Karis LeVert was going to compete with Sexton to get that starting shot. I don't think Sexton was going to come back and play. So for me, it's really like they gave up a few guys that were contributors, but nothing that was really like it wasn't Garland. I was worried they were going to give up Jarrett Allen. I was worried they were going to give up, one of these other guys. No, if that's what they gave up, I'll take the 3 first round picks that they don't have. If that means they're going to win a championship here in the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, now that we have heard all that, I mean, like I said, that sounds more like a trade that you would want for Donovan Mitchell if you're the Jazz. But even still, like that kid from Kansas is unproven. Sexton isn't going to be the starter. I was very high on him coming out of the draft, but he's been surpassed by Darius Garland, and I would rather not have 2 6-foot point guards that have questionable defensive abilities. So that's all right. And then Markkanen, I mean, tall guy that can shoot threes, always nice to have, but we also have that in Kevin Love. So we do still have, I guess, that kind of a piece on the team. So, I mean, I'm kind of with you. I think that's a good trade for Donovan at the end of the day. And I mean, Cavs still are going to be
sign to an extension, though. Hopefully they can sign him to an extension.
Yeah, that's still going to be a solid 8 to 9 man rotation there in Cleveland.
Yeah. So I think it'll be good. But anyways, back to college football.
And no more NBA talk the rest of the show.
Hopefully. But anyways, I think, I agree with you on the whole Scott Frost thing. I think he's fired before. I think he's fired
they needed to be 5-2 in those first 2 theoretically. And if they end up 3-4, I think that's enough to say you're done, dude.
I think that's the same thing. And I think, I'm going to throw this out here. I think Harbaugh better be real careful because I think he's the next one that if, let's say Michigan loses 2 to 3 games here and they're not supposed to, I don't think they will, but Harbaugh's always that guy that I feel like Michigan's just always on the edge of their seat. Like, do we keep him? Do we give him money?
Because he's just good enough that it's like he's done what other past Michigan coaches have done before him, but he's also not done what every wannabe tier 1 program wants to do.
Exactly. So
speaking of Michigan, Ben.
Yes.
I don't know if we are done with Nebraska talk, but do you want to talk about? Okay. Michigan and Jim Harbaugh came out with the announcement that they're going to start Cade McNamara week 1.
Yes.
And they're going to start J.J. McCarthy week 2. And the way that they worded it, it sounds like Cade is going to play the whole first game and JJ is going to play the whole game. I don't think this is going to be a situation where you play a guy for the first half and then sub in the second half. At least I don't think you make this announcement if that's like your plan, right? Because then you might as well just play both guys throughout both games. But if you're going to go ahead and name a game 1 starter and a game 2 starter, I mean, this is also setting up Michigan to maybe look kind of stupid because if one guy is clearly better in his game than the others, like you really thought this was close? Like you really thought this was close?
I'll say this, Josh, are we surprised? No, we're not surprised, Josh. Everyone I
don't actually know if there's too many things that could have surprised me, Ben, because if JJ ended up being named like the team starter, you would have thought, okay, I mean, this is the highly touted recruit, the guy that gives the team a higher ceiling. It makes sense that he's weak or like going to be the starter. And if it was Cade, you look at Cade and you're like, well, this guy just led the team to the first Big Ten championship in decades. So
this is 2 things. But this is though. I think this is the way I look at it is I think Harbaugh doesn't really know who he wants as quarterback. I think no guy, this is my thought. This is not from an insider or anything. I just believe that maybe he's looking at this group and going, I don't know if I truly have a starter. I don't know if I have a guy I can rely on. And I know we have our Michigan guys like David Cohn and Yoder who came on here and said, "Oh, Michigan's fine." And Yoder was a little more hesitant, but David Cohn's like, "Oh, they'll be fine." And he even has them as like his best team. Desmond Howard. Don't even start with Desmond Howard. We'll get to that in a second. But to me, it's just so confusing that Harbaugh is not like, dude, it's like choose a guy. You had all summer, all spring, like choose one dude. McCarthy's already on an edge. We heard Chris Drew talk about last week. He's already on edge. He's already like, do I want to stay here? And I don't know. I think really, you know, whoever starts, obviously they're playing Hawaii the second week. I mean, that's who's the starter is going to be.
Now that we've seen how bad
is McCarthy starting, right?
McCarthy's starting the Hawaii game, yes.
So what I'm saying is this. It really was going to be McCarthy the whole time, but he wanted to keep, I think, just a kind of a scenario up, you know, and going. But I'll just tell you, and I know everyone's saying that, you know, and Zach Smith's been saying this too, that, you know, Michigan's better than what people think. I agree, but I think Ohio State's still going to beat the snot out of them. I think Michigan could, go undefeated, but if you looked at their schedule, it's not like
they're going to be undefeated because of how easy their schedule is.
Yeah,
it's not going to be because they're that
exactly.
team.
And so for me, I hope they're undefeated coming into Columbus, and I hope Ohio State beats them by 4-5 touchdowns. It would be the best feeling ever, right? But yeah, the Michigan thing is just weird. I don't know. It's just weird in general. I mean, I love the collective money that they just got all figured out too. And they're like, hey, here's the money. And I'm like, but Harbaugh, I thought you said the cult. Oh, okay. So that wasn't working. Got it. So we're now going to jump into that realm. So it's just funny to me.
Hey, we got some exciting stuff happening in the Big Ten, though, Ben. We got Penn State and Purdue tonight. Now, since we already clowned ourselves with Nebraska and Northwestern, do we want to talk about who we think is going to win this game, or do we want to just kind of give a summary of what we think of each team and not predict who's going to win so that we can look smart?
Considering they're going to watch this 4 days after we recorded it, I would say that I'm just going to get prediction, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Whatever. I'm throwing Purdue out there. Like, I don't care if I'm an idiot. I'm just, hey, I got to believe in the Boilermaker.
Purdue's the home team, right?
I believe so. Yeah, it's at Purdue. I believe in the Boilermaker.
I'll check that as we talk right here. But
I'm just believing the Boilermakers. You know, let's
boiler up towards Purdue as well.
Because Penn State has not shown me anything the last 3 years. Have shown me nothing the last 3 years.
Let me think. Last year they go 7-6, right? And the year before that, during the shortened season, they go 4-5.
Yeah, something like that.
It is at Purdue.
Yeah, I just hey, you know what? If Purdue loses, I'm sorry. Okay, I was wrong, but you know what? I have faith in Purdue. And
the top 25 poll doesn't really seem to be high in any of these guys. None of them were picked the top 25 team. Yeah, so I'm going with Purdue as well. I think the fact that you got Aiden O'Connell back is huge. There is a concern about receivers, right? Because they're losing a lot of those guys like David Bell. But you look at, I'm going to repeat a lot of the stuff that we heard from Zach and Chris on Menace, but it's all very good. And I was like, that's a good point. Purdue hung with Tennessee's high-powered offense last year with a lot of the guys that are going to be receivers this year, like guys subbing in similarly to how we saw Marvin Harrison and Emeka Egbuka replace Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson for Ohio State. The same thing happened for Purdue, and they put up over 40 points against Tennessee. So, I mean, those are the guys that are going to be playing receiver this year with Aiden O'Connell, who's arguably a top, 4 QB in the Big Ten. And then you kind of flip to the defensive side, and I think they also mentioned that even though they lost George Karlaftis, they still returned 72% of their defensive production, which consistency, huge right there. Over on the Penn State side, I know that they were a top 4 team last year heading into Iowa, and they were mopping the floor with them initially. And then Sean Clifford got hurt, and then whoever the backup QB was just could not even move the football. And
they missed Will Levis. They miss Will Levis.
It would be kind of nice to have Will Levis right now, wouldn't it? But they couldn't score last year. And, I mean, Clifford did eventually come back, and they had that 9 overtime game with Illinois that never should have even existed. And they finished the year 7-6. So I'm just looking at Penn State now that they don't have Jahan Dotson either anymore. And they failed to run the ball like at a high level last year too. They were one of the worst running teams in all of college football, period. So it's like, Penn State, I mean, they got a 5-star freshman running back, so that could be somebody that's contributing pretty early on. We've seen Penn State develop young running backs pretty well, but we do have to see I mean, Sean Clifford, you can make the argument that, he's a veteran, he's experienced, but the last couple of seasons, he's been underachieving, and now he doesn't have that top dog wide receiver like a Jahan Dotson or a KJ Hamler,
Yeah.
unless someone else on the team. I know they do have another pretty solid receiver on the team whose name escapes me at this moment. Maybe he rises to the occasion, becomes that guy. But as far as Penn State goes as a whole, it's like this team, I mean, if they fail to win 8+ games, I'd say you're looking at James Franklin as like maybe that next guy in the hot seat, not Harbaugh. But after Scott Frost, it's got to be James Franklin, right? I mean, he came
Yeah.
in and started winning like 10, 11 games, beating Ohio State a couple of times, win the Big Ten. And now he's kind of in this situation where the last 2 seasons they've gone, let me do the math here, 11-11, actually. They're like right on the 500 mark, Ben. So Penn State's a team that's like a make it or break it season for them right now. But at least this first game, I really like Purdue, especially having the home field advantage.
Hey, according to Dan Dockage, who I don't know why he's talking about football, says Aiden O'Connell is the best quarterback in the Big Ten. And I'm like,
I mean, I know Dan's not, I mean, Dan isn't the smartest guy in the media sometimes, right? But do you think he just forgot CJ Stroud existed? Because I feel like even Dan would not make such a stupid take as that.
That was the dumbest thing I've ever. When I read that, like a friend sent that to me, and I was like,
Dan's
did
kind
he
of right
wake
there
up
in Indiana. He's a former
oh
Hoosier.
my
He's familiar
goodness.
with like Purdue and those kind of teams
But
over there. I think he just honestly forgot CJ Stroud
oh
existed.
my goodness, like wow. Anyways, yeah, I think it's gonna be great. But yeah, and again, obviously this is gonna come out after the game happens. So let us know. Let us know in the comments. How did we do? Did you hate our takes? Did you like it? But let us know in the comments
And
what
we
you
can be
think.
wrong about the game, but I mean, the fact that those things that we said about both teams, I mean, those are storylines to watch for this
Yeah.
year. Is how Purdue, I guess, those new receivers, can they repeat the success they had against Tennessee last year? Can the defense uh, find a way to replace George Karlaftis while still bringing all those other guys back? Still going to be very consistent, I think. And on the Penn State side, can Sean Clifford have that, I guess, boom season to bring Penn State back to prominence and maybe save his head
Yeah.
coach's job for another couple seasons?
Yeah, it's true. And I think this whole upcoming games, as actually technically it's behind us now since we're recording this, but this is gonna be crazy. The Ohio State versus Notre Dame. We did that prediction last week, so go check out that episode if you want to hear that. There's gonna be a lot of crazy games happening that we're all excited about. You also hear I'm planning to do a little Instagram story breakdown on Sunday about, or technically it would have already happened, so never mind. But our plan is, at least my plan is, I'm going to do a breakdown of each Ohio State game as after they happen and kind of give my thoughts on how great they played or how bad they played. So stay tuned for those in the future. And who knows, maybe Josh will talk about Florida, and if they're winning a lot, maybe he'll start doing his breakdowns.
If Florida wins, I'll watch the games. That's kind of the thing. Is like I'm loyal to college football first, and then Florida second. So I'm gonna watch
See,
whichever
do you
game I
see
think's
where
the
do you see
bigger
what
one.
do you see what true Ohio State fans are? We don't just college football first, then our team. No, it's our team, then college football. Anyways, Josh, that's a lot about college football. I know we spent a lot of time on college football recently. So let's move to the NFL because some kind of big storylines have been happening that I think are very fascinating to kind of the week one. Obviously, we're going to kind of give our predictions to the Ohio State, not the Ohio State, I'm sorry, the Cleveland Browns game, because as we're recording, this is right before week one will have happened. So yeah, let's give our thoughts on some of these crazy storylines. What are some of the ones that we talked about pre-show that we wanted to bring up for our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, first off, we got some heat going on between Baker Mayfield and the
Oh
Browns,
boy.
right? Week one, that's a game that everybody's going to kind of be watching. But then there was
Can you
also,
give me the PG version of what he said?
he said he is going to explicit the Browns up.
Just fill in the
So
blank there.
I actually haven't done my due diligence in this to know if that's actually what he said or if he was taken out of context. I can't imagine if those words actually were all strung together that it could have been, but he has since backed off of that a little bit. So it does make me kind of wonder if maybe he was just a little fired up and out or overdid himself right there.
Yeah.
Because I mean, Baker's always a guy and that's kind of talked in the media and also kind of something that I wish he would have done less of while he was in Cleveland. But I
Yeah.
also have seen the media time and again just take something that someone says out of context and try to spin it to say something else. But I think there's going to be some animosity there for sure. I think Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney have both been quoted saying they're looking forward to getting some hits on him as well. Like this is going to
It's
be
gonna
a
be a
game I
fun
think that
game.
people
It's
are
gonna
going
be
to
a
be
fun
interested to
game.
watch because you're going to see if the Browns were held back because of Baker Mayfield or if it was the Browns holding back Baker Mayfield and setting him up to fail last year. And I would lean with the latter, Ben. I think I don't think Matt Rule is going to put Baker Mayfield in situations that he's going to be set to fail. He has some guys to throw to with like DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson, even though Robbie wasn't, super hyped about getting Baker in there. But he was also going to have a healthy Christian McCaffrey and Chuba Hubbard in that run game. So similar situation, I guess you could say, to what he had in Cleveland with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. He's going to have that running game to rely on as well, and he's going to have some guys to throw to. So I'm kind of excited to see how he comes out in this Carolina offense, and then also how the Cleveland defense, which has gone up against him in practice, these last few years, does against him, because I think we might have the edge as far as secondary to wide receivers goes. Like, I would take Denzel Ward and Greg Newsome against DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson all day. I don't know about you, but also one thing that Carolina struggled with last year too was offensive line and protecting Sam Darnold. And what's one thing that Cleveland does really well is pass rush. We got Chase Winovich there. We got Jadeveon Clowney there. We got Myles Garrett. So those are some matchups that are going to be exciting to watch. Is can Carolina, I guess, their receivers create some space against Cleveland's secondary, and then can the offensive line also give Baker enough time to find those guys?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's gonna be a heck of a game. I'm super excited. We'll give our picks here at the end here, but no, I think it's gonna be a game that's gonna come down to the trenches. I think whoever maintains that front, that offensive line, defensive line is gonna win the ball game, right? And I think they have to get the ball to Nick Chubb, right? You're going to have Brissett as the quarterback. I actually want them to start Joshua Dobbs.
I really hope Josh Dobbs is named the starter, but I don't think that's going to happen.
I mean, I like Brissett. I think Brissett gives you consistency. I think Josh Dobbs is kind of
just all the highlights I'm seeing Ben involve Josh Dobbs, and he's athletic and he's making plays and he's running the football.
I think you will see him. Can I give you a bold take? This is my bold take. I think you see Josh Dobbs in the third and fourth quarter of this first game. I would not be shocked if they pull him in there.
Because Brissett's not getting it done, or they just bring him in spot situations?
I think you bring him in spot situations. They go do a two type of quarterback thing. 2 QB. But this is my thing.
Interesting.
Right? Like, I think the Browns, if they can win the line of scrimmage, they win this game by 2 touchdowns. And I think the X factor, I believe, is actually Jadeveon Clowney. If he can be half the guy he used to be, and get Garrett to not be double teamed, and because they have to keep an eye on Clowney as well. I'm sorry, any quarterback on the other side should be terrified of the Browns front line. I need them to get some defensive tackles, though. I'm very concerned about there for the Browns.
I'm also worried about the center position too, because as you guys remember, I think Treader was the center that we ended up cutting, and then Nick Harris was supposed to fill in for him, and he is also out for the season now. So that interior offensive line is going to be something to watch in that matchup too, because if I remember correctly, Carolina has some solid guys in that defensive line too. I think they drafted Derek Brown recently from Auburn, and they got some other guys in that defense. I mean, that's kind of what Matt Rule is. He's a defensive coach, and they've been addressing like all these needs on the defensive side and haven't really been giving the offense as much attention as it probably should get. But Carolina, I think, is more strong on the defense than the offense. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on.
It's going to be an interesting thing. And I know before we give our picks, I do want to break down, because we haven't really talked about the Watson suspension really since it was laid down in the 11 games. Josh, do you feel like the Browns can survive 11 games and be in a place where they could make the playoffs?
I'm going to say no. When we initially thought this was 6 games, we were looking at the schedule, and that's honestly the easiest part of the Browns schedule, right? Is those first 5-6 games of the season. We were like, if we can get 3-3 through here with Jacoby Brissett, we will take it. But you get to that middle of the season, and it's like, we got so many strong games that we got to worry about. And I'm not sure that
Josh wants to be proven
Josh
wrong.
Dobbs.
Josh wants to be proven wrong.
I'm just telling you what I think now. So those games, I don't know if Jacoby Brissett or Josh Dobbs are equipped to win those games. And knowing Kevin Stefanski's history, man, I don't know if he's going to rely on the run game as much as he should either, and totally embrace being like a Tennessee Titans team running with Derrick Henry. So by the time Deshaun gets back, it's going to be week 12, and there's a good chance that the team is sitting in maybe 4-7, 5-6, and in a division that also includes the Baltimore Ravens, who, by the way, are going to have fully healthy secondary and running back room back. A Cincinnati Bengals team that just was in the Super Bowl last year. I don't know if there's too many more games on that schedule that you can afford to lose. Like, honestly, especially all of those first few games of the season have now become must-win games to me, because I'm going to count a lot more losses are probably going to happen in that middle part of the schedule than what we initially thought, because we thought Deshaun was going to be the quarterback there. And then kind of on that note too with Deshaun, it's like, yeah, we're gonna have a step back at QB, right, with Jacoby Brissett. But who's gonna step up at the receiver room, right? Like Amari Cooper, clear wide receiver number one. But Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham aren't there anymore. Donovan Peoples-Jones didn't really make the leap we would have liked to see last year. Hollywood Higgins is no longer with the team anymore. And Anthony Schwartz is getting banged up. And Jameer Grant, is that his name? Jameer Grant is also injured for the season now. So I'm just kind of looking, who's going to step up and fill these roles at wide receiver? Is anybody going to step up, or is it going to be more on David Njoku and Harrison Bryant, the tight ends, who have been relatively well involved in the offense? Kevin Stefanski does like to include like 2 or 3 tight ends a lot in the offense sometimes. So it's kind of going to be curious to see who, I guess, is catching these passes too that Jacoby Brissett is going to be throwing, or if Kareem Hunt is going to become much more heavily involved in the pass game now at the backfield too.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a tough thing. I mean, again, I hate to see it because I think it's weird that it's 11 games, and I think we both know, and we're not going to talk about it too much, but it's become a political game, and it's I feel like if the man's guilty, give him the 16-game suspension. If he's not guilty, then just keep it where it was, right? So, I don't know. It's tough. Like, again, we're not saying that we agree with what Watson did or not. We've said this multiple times on the show, but we do agree that it should be done in the it's anyways. Moving past that, let's go into week 1. What is your predictions? I'll give mine first, Josh, and then you can give yours. My prediction is I have the Browns winning 35-31 in a kind of a high score. What is your thoughts? 35. I have 35-31. I believe that Brissett throws only 1 touchdown and Nick Chubb has 3 rushing touchdowns and then a defensive score.
I mean, I know that we just brought up all those facts about maybe Cleveland's defense having the clear edge here on Carolina's offense, right? But how many times, Ben, have we seen the Browns, even on the years that they weren't supposed to be good or the years that they're supposed to be good, they just don't win week 1, right? Like for a while there was a really long streak where they were not winning week 1. And this is not one of those strong Browns teams. And I mean, Baker Mayfield revenge game. We saw him in college have a similar situation, revenge game against the Texas Tech and Patrick Mahomes, and he ended up winning that one in a high-scoring game. I don't think this is going to be as nearly as high-scoring as that one, but I'm going to go ahead right now and say that Carolina is going to come away with a 27-24 win. It's going to come down to Cleveland needing to get that last touchdown, and I think we're just going to fail to do it.
So you heard it here first. I have the Browns winning week 1. Josh has the Browns losing week 1. Maybe what we'll do is we'll keep a tally on our predictions of the Browns this year, and we'll see who actually comes out on top.
That'd be fun, dude. That'd be fun.
So maybe I will. Maybe I'll keep track. So right here, we have the Browns. Ben saying the Browns will win. Josh saying the Browns will lose.
Man, we got a heck of a week 1 slate too.
We do
too. The season opener Thursday, September 8th is the Bills at the Rams.
It's going to be a hard hitter, as they would say. A hard hitter. I mean, there's going to be a lot of great games. I mean, there's a ton of great games. Speaking of great things that are happening in NFL, look at Russell Wilson. I don't know if you all heard. He just recently signed, what was it, a 4-year extension?
$165 million guaranteed, I think, is the only thing I remember. And it's the 3rd most guaranteed money in the league right now.
Who has the first? Do you remember who that? Oh, right. Yep. The guy
is it Deshaun?
Yeah, it's the
or
guy
is it Mahomes right now?
It might be technically, it could be Kyler Murray.
Or Kyler. Well, Kyler got, I think, the same exact
more
deal as Deshaun.
No, he got more, though, but he got more guaranteed money.
But more guaranteed, okay.
So it could be Kyler. Could be Kyler Murray, which is just funny to me. Yeah. But anyways, so yeah, that's crazy. It's going on. Josh, let's go ahead and let's do this. Let's go ahead and pick our 2 Super Bowl teams. Our 2 Super Bowl teams for the 2022 NFL season.
Man, I've been thinking hard about this the last couple days, Ben. So it's a good thing that I have.
So Josh,
I got an idea for you.
That is my question. Do you want me to go first? Or do you want to go first?
I'm going to go ahead first with my AFC.
Okay, you do your AFC.
So I think the AFC is the deeper conference of the 2, right? I mean, you got the AFC West out there, and I mean, you
don't talk about the Chargers. Better not pick the Chargers. I swear you better not pick the Chargers.
I still think they're going to finish 4th, but I'm just saying you could pick any 4 of those teams to win the division probably, and nobody would fight you on it. So there's true. 4 teams there. You look at the Titans, who were the number 1 seed last year.
Yeah.
You look at our division with the Bengals and the Ravens, and then you look at a much more improved Miami team that I don't think is going to meet expectations, but still promising future there. And the Buffalo Bills, who got into that shootout with the Chiefs last year in the playoffs. That was super exciting to watch. But I think there are a couple things that are going to hold some of these teams back from being that true team capable of winning a Super Bowl, Ben. So I'm going to go ahead and go with those teams in the AFC West first. The Chiefs have just kind of been declining, and they're the only team that in that AFC West, that got worse this offseason. So they've kind of been on a decline from Super Bowl champ to Super Bowl runner-up.
Oh, don't tell me I think you're going to pick
AFC champion runner-up. So I'm not going to pick the Chiefs. I'm also not going to pick the Raiders just because, I mean, they just cut another first-round pick from last year, Ben. There's just always something that's going to hold the Raiders back. I think they're not going to be able to reach their full potential anytime soon. It's just because that's what the Raiders do. And kind of the same thing with the Chargers that we've talked about. That's why I'm picking them fourth, just because it's always something with the Chargers.
It's always something.
Yeah. Denver is interesting, right? Because now Russell Wilson's there, and Denver's always kind of just been that one quarterback away, it seems like, from being able to win it. So I would throw Denver up there as a contender for that AFC championship game. Now, we can talk about Miami. I mean, they made so many offseason improvements, getting guys like Turin, Armstead, and Tyreek Hill, and going and getting Raheem Mostert to boost the backfield. But I just think that Tua is ultimately going to hold this team back from being what they ultimately could be, and they're going to only end up being like 9-8, 10-7 wild card, first round exit probably. You look at the Bengals, and I mean, this is kind of an interesting stat, Ben. I saw something on Instagram that said that quarterbacks that lose their first Super Bowl appearance have never won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I think is how it was worded. So, I mean, obviously that's kind of arbitrary. It's not like that's set in stone, but there are some good guys that have gotten to Super Bowls and lost those and never were able to come back and win one. So, and it's also, I mean, we say how tough it is to repeat winning a Super Bowl. How tough is it to even just get back to the game? Like, it'd be interesting to go back and see how many teams have just gotten back, been able to get back to the game. I'm sure that's a low percentage too. So I'm ruling the Bengals out for that reason as well. And I'm also going to rule out Baltimore just because while they got all those guys back, I think they're going to be a good team. I think there's just some limitations in Lamar Jackson's game. They're going to make Baltimore just too one-dimensional once the playoffs roll around. It's going to be easy to scheme up against them. So that basically leaves us with Buffalo, right? I mean, they were so close last year. They got one of those best defenses in the league and one of the best offenses in the league. Josh Allen's going to be throwing to Gabe Davis, Dawson Knox, and Stephon Diggs. They added James Cook in the draft to boost the running back game. And, I mean, the defense was strong last year. I expect that to be the same case again. So, AFC Championship game, I'm going ahead and saying that it's Buffalo defeating Denver. All right. That's my AFC breakdown. Now, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that and then shoot some thoughts your way about what you think the AFC is going to be like.
Well, first off, that was the most detailed break. Man, Josh has no life. So if you want to know what he's doing at his new job, he's working and as a manager, and he's just sitting in the back thinking of scenarios.
I'm just thinking, what if
he's not hiring people to make his life easier? He's no. Anyways, my thoughts on that. I mean, I'm actually with you. I believe Denver is in my AFC Championship game, so I'm with you with Denver. I think people don't realize how good Russell Wilson is. People just got used to Russell Wilson.
He carried the Seahawks for a very long time.
They got used to Russell Wilson. Now that he's going to
go to Legion of Boom and Marshawn Lynch disappeared, and it was just Russell Wilson. I mean, they were only relevant because of him.
Exactly.
No offensive line, no running game, all Russ.
I agree with you with the Chargers. Okay, Cranes. Okay, either one of you. Okay, the Chargers aren't making it to the playoffs. Okay, they're finishing fourth. You can put that down now. The Dolphins, I agree with you. But I actually have the. I believe I can't say the Bengals because that's like a sin. But no, I actually have the Titans. I think the Titans. I believe the Titans. I believe in Derrick Henry. I think he's going to come back healthy. Tannehill, I mean, I think Malik Willis might end up playing a little bit this year, depending on how the season goes.
He's made a lot of cool throws in preseason. Yes. I know it was just preseason. So some of these they look like Patrick Mahomes throws almost.
So I'm going to make a bold prediction here, and I actually have the Denver Broncos beating the Tennessee Titans in the AFC Championship game and going to the Super Bowl. I have the Browns, not very close. But that is for my AFC. I don't know. I think we both kind of agree with about Denver, but yeah, I believe the Titans will get there. I think it's gonna be Denver versus Titans, and Denver goes to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, Titans were the 1 seed last year. I just think they regressed a little bit, right? Like Tannehill, he kind of got exposed in the playoffs last year. I don't think he's gonna get any better than that. They did lose A.J. Brown and Julio Jones, their 2 starting wide receivers at the start of last season. So now they're replacing them with, I assume, is going to be Robert Woods and Treylon Burks. How are those guys going to do filling in that role? I still think they're going to be a run-first team with Derrick Henry. He's going to be back fully healthy all season long. Like, imagine what Tennessee could have been last year record-wise if they had a fully healthy Derrick Henry all season long. So that's a very, very good possibility. I just think they've maybe regressed a little bit like Kansas City, and that's why I don't have them there. But they very well could be one of those teams that bounces back from that embarrassing, I guess, loss in the playoffs to the Bengals and could make a run.
Yeah. I guess I'll go with my NFC. I'll start with the NFC. This one was kind of tricky for me. It's just weird. It's like a weird place, I guess, the NFC. I was going to go with the Chicago Bears, but yeah, no, I'm kidding.
No, you weren't.
No, I'm kidding. Okay, if people are just tuning into this show for the first time, you don't know the inside joke that Josh and I always make fun of the Chicago Bears every time we talk about the NFL. So yeah, sorry, Uncle Bob, your Bears aren't making it this. If they do, listen. Okay, no, I'm not going to be Chris Drew. Never mind. I'm not going to bet something and then I actually have to do it. So never mind. No, I believe for me in the NFC, right, there's a lot of places you could go with this that makes sense, right? And I was trying to figure out like what team, it's not gonna be the Cardinals, it's not gonna be, I think the Rams for me are going to be in the NFC Championship game. That's like one team for sure for me. I just think the Rams are a team that can be that. But I was going to do it is the Packers, but I don't believe the Packers they just choke too much. They really do. But do I go with Tampa Bay with Tom Brady? Does Tom Brady bring this team back? Who is Tom Brady right now? Like we don't really truly know what Tom Brady we have. But yeah, so I was really trying to figure out what team is going to have a good year. I'm high on the Cowboys a little bit. Would it be the Cowboys? Would it be the Giant? Never mind. Would it be the Eagles? Right? Everyone's talking about the Eagles being a team this year. It's a really weird kind of I think division in a weird not division conference I should say.
It is,
but I think the Rams are a team that I believe will get there. Just because it is the best team I think in the NFC. I don't think it's even close because if you know what I mean, like that's my thought is I feel like they're the best team in the NFC. What is they? Are they the West? Right, they're the West.
They're the NFC West.
They're the West. I'm trying to get that all man. But no, I'm going to actually go with I can't speak it now. I can't speak. Where are they? I had it on my list. Where did I put them? Oh, I actually have the Rams versus the New Orleans Saints in the NFC Championship game. And the reason I say that is because I believe the Saints. Now, do they have the best quarterback in the NFL? No, not by any means, but they do have a very good defense. At least they have Lattimore. You have some great wide receivers. You have Chris Olave. I mean, come on, right? Michael Thomas. You have Taysom Hill. I mean, the man's like he's the Mormon tight end. We don't know what he does. You have Kamara. You have all these really good. You have a good line. They did lose my man, their first round pick. I forget his name now. Slipping my head from Northern Iowa. Penning. He's out for camp.
Because he kept fighting people.
Yeah. So anyway, so I believe it's gonna be the New Orleans Saints versus the Rams, and I have the Rams going to the Super Bowl.
Well, I wish
So I have Rams versus Denver for the Super Bowl. That is my Super Bowl pick, and I pick to win it the Rams. I have the Rams winning the Super Bowl. The Rams repeating.
Man. Well, Ben, I wish I was as confident in the Saints as you. They are, as we talked a little while ago, the team that I think more people are too low on. I just think they're another year away, right? We need to see Olave get a full season, and we need to see Winston get a full season under his sleeve here. And then I think they're going to be really balling out. They still got to figure out how to fill in Teron Armstead too. And now that you said Penning's out, that's going to be another hole that maybe they didn't think they were going to have to fill. So I do think the Saints are going to be competitive. I just think that they are a year away right now. I'm going to see if I can find right now how many teams have repeated as Super Bowl champs.
It is a question that must be answered.
Yeah, that'd be fun to pull up right now because the Rams, I think, are a team that's going to get to the NFC Championship game as
Josh,
well.
I will say, Josh, I was very close to putting the Buccaneers. It was basically between the Buccaneers and Saints was like my two teams to face the Rams in the championship game. I was going to say the Detroit Lion. Never mind. The Lion. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. I'm
Do
making
you
fun of
want
too
to
many
guess
teams.
when the last repeat winner was, Ben?
Last repeat winner was the Patriots, right?
It was the Patriots, 2003 and 2004,
Yep.
Super Bowls 38 and 39. So
Yeah.
it's been
Patriots.
about 20 years. And then
So it's time. It's due.
before them, the Denver Broncos repeated as champs in John Elway's last couple seasons, 97, 98. The Cowboys have repeated as champs in 92, 93. The 49ers, 88,
Steelers.
89. The Steelers, 78, 79. And the Steelers again, 74, 75. Dolphins have done it once, and the Packers have done it once. So it looks like it happens about once every decade, and it's just been a very long time since this last happened. So we could be due for a Super Bowl repeat here,
I'm
Ben.
just
I
saying.
mean, what's not to like about the Rams? Matthew Stafford goes into the team, finally gets out of Detroit and wins a Super Bowl his first time with, I guess, a functional franchise, right? So I mean, he's going to have Cooper Kupp to throw to. He's had Cooper Kupp and Calvin Johnson have had the two best receiving seasons in NFL history, and he's been the quarterback of both of them. Now, they did lose Robert Woods. They haven't re-signed Odell Beckham Jr., and Van Jefferson is currently injured right now. I can't remember how long, but they did make a move to get Allen Robinson from the Bears to replace that hole. And Van Jefferson will eventually be back. So he'll have some guys to throw to. And Tyler Higbee at tight end. That's another guy that was kind of involved last year. I think Higbee and Gerald Everett, maybe. I think were the two tight ends. I could be wrong, but I think that's right. And defense, I mean, is still going to be strong with guys like Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. And Von Miller's not over there anymore. He's with my boys over. I don't want to call them my boys, never mind. But my prediction over in Buffalo. Von Miller's over there now. But even still, losing all those guys, I think the Rams are still going to be one of those teams that's going to be strong on the offensive and defensive side of the balls. Packers, I am not too high on. I mean, with all the drama that happened and trading away Devontae Adams, now it's just like, who's the receivers? Allen Lazard, Sammy Watkins, Christian Watson. I'm not really high on that room right now. I don't think it's going to be one that Aaron Rodgers is going to really be able to work with. I think it's going to be similar to that room that he had a few years ago that he was always complaining about. Nobody was open and stuff like that, right? I think Green Bay is actually going to have to rely a lot more on their running game with Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, especially coming out of the backfield as receivers in the pass game too. So, and like you said, they always seem to find a way to blow it in the playoffs recently. So it's another reason why I'm not very high on them. And another team I thought about, the Eagles. Why not? They had one of the best off seasons, but we still got to see Jalen Hurts do a little bit, right? Like I think he's on the come up.
Yeah.
I'm personally a fan of Jalen Hurts, but I still think that there are some things that he needs to improve on before they can actually be fully capable of their full potential. And then I look at the 49ers too, right? Like this is almost the same team as last year. It's just Trey Lance is the quarterback now, but they haven't parted ways with Jimmy G just yet. And I wonder, Ben, in my mind, if the 49ers, they've had Trey Lance in the system, in the building for a whole year now, and they're thinking, man, we messed up. We traded away so many first-round picks to move up to third to take this guy, and he may not be the guy, but they feel pressure because of everything that they gave up to start him, and they're not really ready to move on just yet because they signed Jimmy G to that 1-year contract instead of cutting him or trading him away. So I think that's kind of like a safety valve just in case things go south. But if Trey Lance can be similar to Jimmy G, where he just doesn't turn the ball over too much, where he kind of lets the defense do his thing, doesn't really care who gets the glory, the run game can get things done. I mean, Kyle Shanahan has shown that he can kind of win games, even if his quarterback's not the one that's doing it for them. So I would throw the 49ers as a contender potentially, but still think that that I'm not high on Trey Lance being able to do that just yet. So the last team I'll talk about is the Cowboys. And it's just always something like it's like with the Raiders, right, Ben?
Yeah.
Or the Chargers. It's always something with Dallas, right? They've been in that situation. They've had the top offensive defense and then missed the playoffs. Or Dak Prescott gets a season-ending injury, and I know that's not on him, but it's still something that has happened. And now Amari Cooper is gone, and Michael Gallup is starting the season injured. And I mean, is CeeDee Lamb going to break out? Ezekiel Elliott has also kind of been on the decline the last few years. Is he going to be able to reach back to the status that he had as a rookie? Like him and Dak Prescott, man, are in their 7th seasons. It's crazy to think that they've been in the league this long already. But I'm going to go ahead with you on the Rams being the NFC team in that championship game, and they're going to be playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That is actually the final team. I forgot. My team that I'm actually going to pick to win the NFC is Tampa Bay, Ben.
Awesome.
And I know a lot of people are wondering if Tom Brady, like what was going on, why is he taking personal leave? Rob Gronkowski is gone, but I'm tired of picking against Tom Brady, Ben, and he came back for a reason, right? he didn't think that last season went the way that it should have. And they were a few plays away from being able to beat the Rams last year, and they could have been the team win the Super Bowl. And maybe that would have been Tom's last season, but he is back, man. And I think he's only going to leave if he wins one more ring. And I'm going to go ahead and say he's going to do it. He's going to beat the Rams in the NFC Championship game, and then he's going to beat the Buffalo Bills in the Super Bowl. This is the second year in a row that I've picked the Buccaneers to do this, and it could be the second year in a row that I'm wrong. But until Tom retires, I'm not going to pick against them right now until it's very obvious that he's on a team like the Jets, and there's no way that they'll win the Super Bowl then.
Hey, you know what? It's awesome to do this, Josh. I was outside today taking some pictures, and it feels like football weather. It feels like it's time for football. It feels like it's time to hit somebody, to go out there. I miss coaching. I miss being out there on that field. And I'll tell you, Josh, it's just good to have football back. Football is back. And it's, I tell Josh all the time, my dad was a coach, and there's just something about when fall hits and we all get crazy and weird and angry at stupid plays, but it's all in the fun and the love of the game. And I remember the Cranes talked on their show about what football means, and especially college football. And I do want to reiterate as we finish up the show here. I think, Josh, you can probably put on this too, but we both grew up around sports, but I think college football is something about when you're a kid. And for me, it was the High State Michigan game, and I remember watching at my cousin's house, and we'd get a football and we'd go out and play a High State versus Michigan and in the yard and tackle the snot out of each other because we thought that was fun, and then we were in pain. But like, that's what I remember, right? And college football will always be about the memories, and I hope they never ruin college football. I'm worried they are. I'm worried they're taking away that fan feeling, that small town feeling of, I'm going to root for my team. I want to root for my team because it's the team I want to be, not because some money tells me I have to. And so, Josh, I don't know if you have any final thoughts on football in general and what it means to you, and maybe what excites you about it as we finish up here.
Yeah, I'm excited for the college football season too. I do want to throw out a little bit of credit to the Cardinals too. I think they're another team that could be on the come up in that NFC. It's just one of those things where I think that Kyler Murray has some limitations to his game too, just kind of like how Lamar Jackson does over there. There's some character issues and the studying issues, of course, with the contract situation, with having to watch so much film. It's like, I don't know if I believe in Kyler just yet, but that offense is definitely going to be fun to watch. But as far as college football and all that goes, yeah, I'm a big fan of it too. And you got to be to not even want to watch your actual favorite team all the time, right? Like, I'm loyal to the game. And I'm going to watch all the big matchups.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm definitely excited for this season, Ben. There's going to be some new playoff teams. I think it's going to be set up for that. As we talked last week with our power rankings, this could be the year that Utah finally puts it all together. Georgia, it's going to be tough to be able to repeat last year's success, especially with everybody that they lost. Like, they're not going to have that generational defense. It's going to be talented, but it's not going to be like the generational aspect that we have seen. And then there's also Bama to watch. Was last year actually rebuilding year? They're going to put it all together and win it all, or is Ohio State going to come out on this revenge tour and just mop the floor with everybody? And yeah, I mean, in the future we're going to see how things go with mega conferences and NIL. But I did see this, and I'm sure you saw it too. CJ Stroud had a nice little
it was
nod
awesome.
to his team, gave away $500 gift cards to Express to all his teammates, and I'm sure that was about 80 to 100 players on that team. $500 gift card to go and get a suit at Express so that they can be coming into the shoe this Saturday night looking fresh and new gear. And I'm sure that's going to bode nicely for him with the team. They're going to want to play for him, and it's just kind of nice to see, I guess, CJ show a little bit of leadership that way, because that's been something that we've questioned with him, right? Is he going to be just kind of a guy that doesn't want to run the football, whine a little bit, doesn't want to go and do that extra mile? And I think this is maybe an indication that he's stepping up to be that guy.
Yeah, and so we do appreciate you listening. This was a fun week, Josh, because we got to talk about more than just college football. We talked about a lot of different things. We got NBA in there, came out of nowhere.
Screw
right?
Guests, no more.
No, we do have a lot lined up. Actually, there's one in the works that will be happening. Hopefully, I won't release it until it's 100% guaranteed, but that will hopefully be happening soon, and as well in the future. But once again, we want to thank you for everything you guys do. That's just listening and sharing. And I mean, it feels like every time I look at Spotify, we have more listeners every week. So it's really, really cool. And we really appreciate it. YouTube's been doing great as well. So thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts. We really appreciate it. But if you've been watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. That'll allow you to see everything and maybe comment on who's better looking, Josh or myself. Just you can choose. It's up to you. But I don't know why I add that in every show now. But anyways, I hope you do enjoy the video version of the podcast. There's also the other episodes as well. Make sure you head over to our Instagram at baseline.podcast, where you can see all of our stories, our posts for college football season. We'll have some different things from power rankings to just maybe some short clips of things that we're going to talk about. Especially like I might react to Ohio State football games. Josh might react to just college football in general because he's generic. But no, and if you've loved the episode on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, make sure you rate us. Rate how much, I don't know, how much more I'll be right this year with Browns picks than Josh. Will I be over 500? I don't know. Just rate it.
Will Scott Ross be fired? Or Scott Frost be fired?
Wow, you are struggling with names today. Anyways, hope you guys have an amazing week. As we are so excited to do this with you this year. We're excited for football. We're excited for sports. And I hope you are too. So until next time, we'll see ya.